Jimmy Van
And
Sean Ross Sapp.
Fightful.com. Yeah.
What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp. Welcome to Fightful. It is, March 27th already, 2024. The Hump is back. It's been a while, guys. Took a week off in general. Then we did the What Do You Guys Want to Talk About podcast. If you like that type of show, great news. FightfulSelect.com. We got one almost every week. This week, Grapsity's doing a Q&A. I'm over on our FightfulSelect.com Discord nonstop answering questions. And that's what we're here to do today. Get your super chats in if you're here at youtube.com/Fightful to get your question or statement read on the air. Or you can go to humperchats.com, HUMPER chats.com, just like the show. Hump. We're here to talk about what you guys want to talk about, which is obviously Sean Ross Sapp winning the Arbo's Dip Big Cheese Championship this Friday.
that was actually the first thing on my list.
Is it, Jimmy?
I was going to ask you about what are you doing Friday night, Sean Ross Sapp?
I am competing at Black Label Pro. I mean, last year I got such a ridiculously loud ovation that
Massive.
the city of Indianapolis, I have heard, demanded that I be included in this battle royal, and it's benefiting Hosea's house. For those of you who don't know, that is a wonderful cause, somewhat locally, that benefits women and children in crisis. They also do an awful lot of things for the community. There's a link on my Twitter to how you can donate. In addition, next month, I don't want to overlook this, I'll be wrestling in a battle royal at Pawcade in Jeffersonville, Indiana, just over the river from Kentucky. That's going to benefit the Humane Society of Washington County. Anytime I wrestle or do an appearance, it will be to benefit some cause like this. But Jimmy, at this point, here's the way I look at it. I am fresher than most of the people in this match. I'm not wrestling every weekend. I am significantly more famous than most of the people in this match. And I
haven't seen the rundown.
It doesn't matter. I have written several articles about Rumble matches, so I think I know more about this than anybody else in there, and I'm just truly humbled. I'm truly humbled that all of these great athletes, like Hornswoggle, will be in this match and are allowing me to go there. I mean, listen, I understand the cost of going to an event like this, and it is not lost on me how many people had to steal money out of their grandmother's wallets and had to mug people and rob from people in order to be able to go to this show and support me. So I just want to say thank you, guys, and take a little bit of that money and donate it to a great cause, please.
Yeah, the quality of your life will confuse them, Sean.
Yeah, that's the old gimmick.
Sean Ross Sapp getting that Road Warrior pop.
Listen, the quality of my life confuses me sometimes because I think you know this by now. I've spent a ton of money getting this home studio set up. Not this one, the one that people have seen me in with the wooden background, like paid to have that background in. Got great mics, mixing boards, a big monitor on the wall, lighting, all that stuff. And I had somebody say, well, Sean, why haven't you been in that studio for the last couple of months? Well, I bought a new studio PC. The one that I had been using was an old one and all that stuff. And almost immediately it stopped working. So I sent it to Best Buy. They've had it for 2 months. And then they hit me up today. They're like, oh, yeah, we're just going to replace it. Thanks, guys.
I would have just told them out of the hop, just replace it.
Ain't anything I got to do over the next week and a half. But my hope was when Lexington Comic Con was here, when I interviewed Swerve, when WWE Raw was here, I wanted to have people in studio to interview them because I live 3 miles away from Rupp Arena. So that ain't happening. Hopefully by WrestleMania, I will be back. I'm flying back to cover the show. Wanted to spend some time with some family as well, but hopefully by then I will be doing in-studio stuff again from that studio as well, because I like to give different looks and all that. But hate to be a Karen about it. I was just like, man, thankfully there was one woman on Best Buy's Twitter that was adamant about helping me because nobody locally did there. It was a pain in my ass.
You a wrestling fan or something?
No, but funny enough, I did take my computer to Geek Squad last year, and they were wrestling fans. Like there were 2 wrestling fans at the other Best Buy in Lexington, which was kind of cool. That was neat.
Interesting. Well, I want to start by talking about The Rock because, and I saw you say something similar on Twitter about this. Actually, funny enough, if someone 2 years ago had told me that Dwayne Johnson in 2024 would not only be back in wrestling, but would be on television leading up to WrestleMania every week,
yeah,
I don't think I would have believed it. You know what I mean? He's in his early 50s. He hasn't had a match in a decade. He's a made man in the entertainment world. Like, he's a legitimate A-lister. He's got more money than he's ever going to spend. And here he is on Raw or SmackDown every damn week heading into WrestleMania. It's fascinating, man. Like, he's on TV more than Roman Reigns is. Could you have expected that?
I'll shout out our FightfulSelect.com Discord. I broke this news I alluded to it about 2 minutes before it happened, but I was like, my God, and it's funny because I had talked to somebody. Do you remember when they taped the 2 episodes before Elimination Chamber? They had him close 1 week, then they didn't have him on the taped episode. And I'm like, if they would have just been like, run him out there for anything, just do anything, they would have had him on like 10 or 11 episodes by the time Raw After Mania is done.
Right.
And I love it. Like, listen, this guy, as Just Mass says, Rock exposing Roman for the part-timer he truly is. At this point, like, listen, I understand he has eroded his goodwill a little bit within the comic, superhero, and movie industry. I don't know how UFL is going to go. Hopefully well. I mean, NFL's still stealing shit from the XFL. They're taking their kickoff model now. But I think this is the perfect thing. He is getting paid an insane amount of money to be on the board. They let's be real. TKO gifted him those licensing things. They just were like, hey, listen, this will be good publicity for us. This would be good for you. More money for you. It's worth the investment. And I got to say, whoever's idea it was to do that with The Rock, whether it be his or TKO's, whoever signed off on it, brilliant on their behalf, because The Rock is like, I know you won't get this reference, but it's like Heihachi Mishima in Tekken, who is this older dude, and there are a lot more intimidating looking guys in the company than them, a lot more people that can go. He's this white-haired, white-mustached guy that can just fuck everybody up. And I believe that of The Rock. I believe the final boss thing, to the point, Jimmy, to where I'm like, I think Roman's going to be the babyface when they face each other. Like, I think The Rock is going to be I think, I think that's how good The Rock is doing right now.
Be interesting. That'd be interesting. Well, I got to tell you, Raw this week, to me, for the first time that I can remember, it felt like the Attitude Era, which for me as a fan was peak WWE. That's how it felt. You had marquee names on the show. You had The Rock, you had CM Punk, and you had Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre, Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley. You had great storyline progression with the promo segments and Rock laying out Cody. Hot crowd in Chicago, 15,000 plus. They even threw in a little bit of coarse language with Punk and Rock.
Yes, they
and
did.
Then a little bit, some decent in-ring to go with it. Ricochet and JD McDonough and Sami Zayn, Bronson Reed and Jey Uso, Shinsuke Nakamura. We've heard wrestlers in interviews, talk about how WWE is the hottest that it's ever been. Like Cody said that.
Yeah.
And I never used to really feel that this era compared to the Attitude Era, because the landscape is different, right? Like 25 years ago, there weren't rights fees. And so, sure, WWE is hotter now than ever because of the revenue they get from rights fees. But I never felt like that it was a hotter time, like they were doing 10 million between Raw and Nitro back in the day. I'm starting to feel like this is a really hot time, and people are consuming content differently. And so
I love it, man.
Just because Raw's not averaging 2 million a week, that doesn't mean that there aren't millions more watching on the internet. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And I don't think that AEW's TV deal will get done until like midsummer, especially with the Triller announcement. But I think once that happens, we're really going to see that, and hopefully other companies can get in on it too. But right now, I mean, I talked to Cody Rhodes about this last July, whenever I went to Atlanta for his documentary, and he was like, man, you are covering wrestling in the most financially rewarding period for talent ever.
That's true. Yep.
More than WCW, WWF era, more than anything. A significant reason for that is WWE is finally getting paid what they're worth. I mean, they were criminally underpaid for years and years and years for for what they brought in, because there was this weird notion that wrestling fans didn't spend money. And listen, when you connect emotionally with wrestling fans, they will invest in you financially as well. If they believe in something, if they believe in the work or believe in the person, they will invest in that. And a whole lot of people have shown that. I think that, I mean, God, what a great idea to bring in The Rock and have him be on the board and give him those licensing things. Because listen, after Black Adam, I don't know what was going to be next for The Rock. Moana. So yeah, I mean, listen, that's going to be a hit no matter what.
And there, he's doing two. He's doing another animated one, plus he's doing live action.
Don't know what the I was gonna say the live action one will be very demanding from a schedule aspect, but like, he doesn't need to be around all the time. If he pops in once every month or two, great. But I mean, what we're seeing now is him doing something so categorically different than what he has been doing, which is show up, make the same jokes he made in 1999, beat up a guy who isn't hurt by him getting beaten up by The Rock, and then he leaves again. It's different now. And what we are seeing is The Rock evolve before our very eyes, because there were a lot of promo or line promos. I was like, that's corny. It doesn't age well. It doesn't work. And what we have seen before our very eyes is him adapt and be like, no, I'm still really good at this, even within the limit, not necessarily within the limits, but
he does what he wants for sure.
Yeah. Let's get to some of these super chats about it, because this one I completely agree with. Ace, The Rock is one of the best, if not the best, entrants going right now. On last Raw, you witnessed his silhouette come out of the shadows paired with the lighting flashes, making his final boss persona feel larger than life. Jimmy, I tweeted this as well. I understand that some people romanticize the sets and all that, but whenever I've asked about it, people in the company say, well, we can put whatever we want up there. And the first time that hit me was when I saw Imperium's entrance in person. They've got those giant columns. In person, it looks incredible. It looks so good, but there weren't many others that did. This is one of them. I think for the simple backgrounds, it works really well. A black background with one little thing there. The lightning striking, man, that is great use of that set, Jimmy.
Yep. Spotlight. They use the big spotlight. And I mean, everything about it's been great. I would love to know how much input, say, Brian Gewirtz has had in all of this, how much input The Rock himself has had in all of this. We've seen a lot of improvement with production, where now they'll do
another brilliant guy.
Yeah, and production. Now they'll do like these sometimes minute and a half straight shots, one shot. They showed Punk again in Gorilla going out this week. Like it's very interesting what's happening. And I want to ask you something about, so I know that there's been some talk about, The Rock is getting away with things that other talent can't, like language and whatnot. I want to ask you this. So when CM Punk did his promo and he was going to make some kind of a remark about how his mouth still works, and then he ended up pausing and saying, oh, April knows, whatever. Punk said something. He said, we're not on Netflix yet. And that got me thinking. Do you think that when they move to Netflix, when they're not going to have the same level of restriction that they have on cable, that they might ease up with the language? Because kids are still going to watch Raw on Netflix, and kids are still going to attend the shows live, and sponsorship is a big thing to them. But Netflix, the cuffs are off a bit. So what do you think might happen in terms of the content when they go on Netflix? So
I think that is going to be a giant TBD. Because what we have seen with Netflix is, one, they are raising prices because of these incredible investments they've made. And I mean incredible by huge investments, not great investments. They make some pretty dumb investments. They might toy around with the idea of running ads. Like, do we really think they're going to run Raw commercial free for 3 hours? I highly doubt that.
So the other day, we got our first commercial on Prime. My wife and I got our first commercial on Prime. And I said to her, Netflix is on the way. That's going to happen. Same thing.
At which point you start to say, What exactly am I paying for again? Because we pay for an ad-free experience. I'll give you an example. Fightful Select paywall, no ads behind it, right? Unless it's audio we have already pulled and it's got them within there. We have had people say, well, what can we do to sponsor Fightful Select? And I said, you would have to give us an amount of money that justifies us saying, well, now we have ads behind our paywall that inconvenience our viewers. As a result of all this, it would have to be a gargantuan amount of money to be a presenting sponsor. For Netflix, they are not operating at a profit, I don't think. So they're probably just trying to recoup anything they can on this investment. A lot of it depends on what those specific sponsors that they're going after or going after these Raw shows, what they want. Like, are they cool with something else? Are they going to be running, like, because if they're running ads on Breaking Bad episodes as well, like mid-roll, well, they shouldn't have any issue with saying dipshit on TV, right? Like,
Yeah, they'll have it determined based on the show, and I'm sure it's going to be like the lowest price tier is going to be the ad-based tier, but it's still going to make for a very interesting experience. And I'm sure it'll be like when you're watching, AEW on Fight, and during commercials, if you're a Fight subscriber, you would see what's going on. It'll probably be like that if you're on a higher tier. But I'll be very curious about what kind of leniency they have when it comes to language and content. Knowing again that kids will be watching the show. But on Netflix, you can have like a kid account, right? That is only kid shows. They're not doing that for Raw. So because they're not doing that for Raw, now it becomes parental discretion. So maybe they will ease up on. I'm very curious to see what happens with that. And so we'll see early next year.
I'm curious to see if they allowed big hard penises to be advertised. Hello. Do you have a limp penis? A difficulty getting it erect? Boy, do I have a product for you. BlueChew.com and the code FIGHTFUL will help fix that. Blue Chew has the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. But they work a lot faster because it's a chewable. It's also much more affordable. Use that promo code FIGHTFUL. Get your first shipment free. Just pay $5 shipping. One of the best parts, it's discreet. No awkward in-person doctor's visits. You don't have to go to the pharmacy. It ships straight to your door when approved by an online physician. You want to check this out. It will help you. It is a good product. It will make your sex life better. BlueChew.com and the code FIGHTFUL. Let's get to some of these super chats and Hump.
The whipped cream was a nice touch. That was a nice touch. Good job, Rob Bull.
Rob is incredible, right? Like, I used to not like doing the pre-recorded ones, and now because he's so good at them, like our advertisers love them as well.
I want to note quickly, a bunch of people in the chat said that Netflix has already been doing ads. I didn't even know that because I guess I'm in a tier that doesn't get them.
I haven't watched live programming on Netflix yet. So, but I mean, regardless, here's the thing. They're going to have ads on Raw. It's going to happen.
Sure. Yeah.
There's no way they're going to not have ads on Raw. It's just a matter of what those sponsors want. So let's get to some of these super chats, Humper chats. Please leave a thumbs up on this video. A reminder, we are on podcast platforms everywhere, but if you're here on YouTube, do me a favor, guys. We have had a bunch of interviews, more interviews over the last month than ever before. Chad Gable yesterday, Tom Lawler a couple days ago. Do not sleep on this interview. We talk about the Brawl for All tournament. I give him fights behind the scenes in wrestling history, and he guesses who wins them as a former UFC fighter. And it's very good. And then on Friday, we got Jade Cargill. So check that out, guys. Rock Hard Joel Wood says Rock has appeared more in 2024 than he did during the entire build of the Cena match. Yeah. And as a result, this build is way better. Way better, Joel. I gotta say. Steven says, call me a mark if I'm getting worked here. Seem to be some hurt feelings in the Punk Drew Seth promo. Any word if it went too far?
You and I talked about that a little bit.
We did. So FightfulSelect.com, best $5 in the business. We also have a free tier. Reported they had a general outline. It wasn't scripted, as you could tell. They alluded to like things they wouldn't normally allude to, like Drew McIntyre even dyeing his beard, or Vince McMahon related stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Drew McIntyre is not going to get his feelings hurt during this. Drew McIntyre is completely like, let's sell some papes type of guy. Seth Rollins almost certainly isn't going to, unless it's, something like what happened with Riddle's ex-wife and all that. And then Riddle apologized, and guess what happened? Rollins did business with him because Rollins is a pro. Punk is wildly the one you got to worry about sometimes. But what's he going to do? Like, listen, he can beat up an awful lot of people. He trained MMA for a long time. He ain't beating up Drew McIntyre backstage after this. And also, I would hope that by now he would realize this is all for the sake of selling pay-per-views in the future. None of this shit should be personal. And I think that should have been the case with the Bucks, with Jack Perry, with Hangman, with anybody. Communication should have been there. And I believe that communication was probably there. And I think that they are very, very smart about how they're doing that.
I definitely thought Punk looked flustered at one point. Sean and I talked off the air about it, and I told Sean I never thought I'd see a promo where Drew McIntyre got the best of CM Punk, but I felt like he did get the best of CM Punk, and Punk to me felt like he got a little bit flustered, and that surprised me a little bit. But that promo I thought was fantastic. I loved it. It all of a sudden it made the whole Seth Rollins Drew McIntyre match more interesting to me. And they tease Punk being the referee. It looks like he's only going to do commentary, but I would love it if he was the referee. Like, that would add even another element. It'd be like, remember SummerSlam with Brett and Taker, and Shawn Michaels had to count the 3 and give Brett the title?
Have you ever seen what is it that the Adam Sandler movie about the jewels where Kevin Garnett's in it? He's like, why would you show me something if I couldn't have it? That's what the referee thing was.
Right.
I was like, why would you show me that if I could not have it? But,
right. Well, since we're talking about Drew McIntyre, I'll ask you this.
We got super chats and humper chats, Jimmy.
Okay.
My God. We got a super chat that'll address that as well.
All right.
Rock's always been in my top 5, says New Lac City. Might put him up there as the GOAT. Being able to come in and be the final boss at 50 might pass Brett and Stone Cold after all is said and done. What do you guys think? Depending on like how long this goes and what it results in. Like, listen, you want to the Mr. McMahon character at 50 something was really, really effective. And they got like a year or 2 out of him, like where he could do some in-ring stuff. They got a couple more appearances after that. The Rock understands, and The Rock is way more famous than Mr. McMahon was at any point. I think I think The Rock gets it, and hopefully it's his giving back era.
It's amazing because if you remember several years back when Kelly and Ryan Seacrest were still doing that show, he announced his retirement. He actually on that show announced retirement, and that was got to be a good 5 years ago. And now here he is, and I think he's doing great. I agree with everything you said about his shtick was getting old. The toilet humor and donkey balls and all that shit, it was getting old, and this is a different Rock. This is a different Rock, and I'm really digging it, and I love it.
Donkey balls. Did he ever really say that?
I don't know. Nobody said all this bullshit.
Probably. He probably did.
He probably did. Yeah. So he's way cooler right now than he was then.
That legitimately sounds like something he would have said. Chris says this Mania season has been a wild ride. When Cody gave up his spot, I was wondering if I wanted to make the trip to Philly. After Monday, I'm counting down the seconds till my plane leaves. Wrestling is indeed fun. Chris, I mean, I can put it this way. I don't usually stay for the pay-per-views. Sometimes in the summer I do if my family makes the trip with me. But I would love to be there for another few days. It's just like, man, thousands of dollars of difference, and spending a little bit of time with my family has me coming home. And we don't have anybody to do the damn WrestleMania post show. Fightful is like all at WrestleMania except for like Jeremy and the writing team. So I got to come back and do those. New Lac City says, love the ending of Raw. I felt like people saying top 5 in history are suffering from recency bias. I would agree with that. There's also, Jimmy, do you want to go back on your prediction that Rock is a double agent?
So I'll go back on the prediction that he's partnered with Cody, But I absolutely think Rock is going to turn on Roman at WrestleMania. Absolutely think it. And Rock himself has said, I'm in it for the long game, or he said, I'm playing the long game, whatever he said.
Yes.
So they've already got it planned out. And I think Rock is absolutely going to turn on Roman night 2 of WrestleMania.
I do too.
Yeah.
Alex Silva says, hey, SRS and Jimmy, at this point, I want Mania to be over. If I see one more theory about how MJF, Cena, Jay, Seth is going to cost Cody night 2, I'm going to lose it. Is it me, or has the IWC been the most crazy this Mania than ever? Alex, I'm going to say no, and I'll tell you why no. It's good right now. I had a lot of people coping with, no, it's actually a great idea that Roman's facing Brock again. It's actually a great idea that Brock beat him. It's actually a great idea. Listen, wrestling is subjective, but we were subjected to some really, really terrible booking for a long time.
Oh, for years and years. Yes.
Right now, we've got excited fans that are coming up with, fantasy booking things of things they enjoy. It ain't going to be MJF. He's with AEW.
I was going to ask you, why did he put MJ? Is that a rumor?
People are saying everybody is,
People don't understand contracts, Sean. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not, they've got him off the roster page and all that, and he hasn't leaned into it. He hasn't talked or anything, but I understand why some people who aren't as connected as others are like, oh, maybe MJF. He hasn't been around in a while. No. And I don't know why Jay Leno would think that, but Jimmy, what was the last WDB event you attended?
I don't know the year, but it was when the Shield was together.
Okay.
And I have a friend that worked for WWE. You know who he is. And he offered me tickets. And so I took my wife, and I'll tell you a funny side story about it. And my wife was convinced that this was on purpose, but I don't think it was. Where our friend put us, like where we were seated. Remember how the Shield came through the crowd? Roman and Cody, Roman and Seth and Dean Ambrose. They came right to where we were. And they stood right next to us. And when my wife's friend was trying to take a selfie with Seth Rollins, ended up taking a picture of his crotch because that's how close they were. So whenever the Shield was together, Punk was on the show. So you're looking a good 9-10 years.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've been to a WWE show.
Hushes says, will WWE stick with the more mature content after that Raw? Any word on what we saw Monday will be potential and how Netflix will be? We answered this one effectively earlier. I just didn't read the super chat out loud. Apologies for that, but I think it'll be dependent on what sponsors that they have there. Could Raw and Netflix be presented like soccer and have ads on the apron, video board, ring mat, or turnbuckle pads? Absolutely.
Yep.
The real estate is up for sale. I mean, they're doing the Prime sponsorship. Long time coming. I will say this, after working with so many MMA companies that put images on their mats, I hope for the sake of God that they do it in a safe way. I cannot tell you how many fighters I have seen slip on those logos that are like pressed on and all that stuff, and they're not a good material to be wrestling on. But any update on Cody, Drew, Becky, and Seth's contracts? As a Cody fan, I worry he might not stay. And
no chance he goes.
KE775 says, is WWE playing a dangerous game, allowing Becky, Seth, and Drew to get this close? Or do you sense they are confident they will all stay? I think they're confident they will all stay. However, I do think it's a little dangerous, especially considering you have all 4 of those people with contracts coming up. And I haven't heard that any of them have re-signed yet. Not to say they haven't. I haven't heard that they have. Mm-hmm. And they're all in, they're in like 4 of the 5 or 6 biggest matches on the show.
I want to talk about Drew with that. So Seth Rollins has done interviews where he's basically said WWE is my home, and I'm sure we'll get something done. Sure. Becky Lynch has done the same. Cody Rhodes is going to win the title at WrestleMania. I'd be shocked if he left. Drew McIntyre, to me, he is one of the hottest characters in all of wrestling right now. He's on the biggest role that he's been on in WWE, and it only makes sense to strap him up at WrestleMania. But if he hasn't signed, do you take the chance?
I mean, I don't know if it's he hasn't signed or they haven't offered him a new deal yet. I don't know if they've even approached that. I know there are some people they haven't, because there are other people whose deals are up that I haven't quite reported yet. I'm waiting to get the green light on those. But
I mean, either way, if you don't have a commitment, you're going to put the belt on this guy. It's a tough one, but he's been incredible. And you know what? Drew McIntyre's not dumb. He knows the spot that he's in. He knows he's in a good spot.
Sure.
Right? So something tells me he wants to get it done too. But do you go all in on him if he's not signed? I don't know.
And Rock Hard Joel Wood says Drew and Seth match is interesting because both of their deals are coming up around the same time. Can't take the result to even mean anything on their contract status. Yeah, because I mean, you could just immediately switch the belt off of them and that'd be fine. I'd be okay with that. But Drew is also one, he is not scared to go navigate the world outside of WWE because he's done that and it led him back to WWE.
Sure.
Any clue on where Raw will air the next few months before Netflix? No, it wouldn't surprise me to see them try something really off the wall. I don't know what that is. I know TKO has factored it into their projections as if $0 will be accounted for. I'm not reporting this, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're just like experimental with it. Like maybe they just like, let's run live on YouTube. Let's sell our own ads. Let's do this. Let's go to FightfulSelect.com. Maybe that's what they'll do. They'll just go ahead and subscribe, everybody. I won't say that it's going to happen, but you should subscribe anticipating that it might.
I think they extend with USA. They're by and large the biggest thing USA's got. USA's going to have SmackDown. So I think they extend with USA for whatever, 3 months.
Sean, thoughts on the new NFL kickoff rules? It's a lot like the XFLs, and I love the XFLs. It is great. It makes kickoffs not a foregone conclusion now, and I'm so excited for it. Call Me Crazy says, I think Priest cashes in on Cody at Mania, mirroring what happened to Cody's dad. I mean, that was a little bit different because Cody's dad won the title, and then they took the reign from him. If he got cashed in on, he would have still won the championship. So he would have at least done that. Here's what I think happens, Jimmy. I think night one in the ladder match, Damian Priest gets hit with such a big spot that it is implied that he is not there on night two. And that explains why he isn't cashing in on either one of these situations or night one. So I think you have him, fall off a ladder, through a table. Maybe you stretcher him out or something like that. And that way you explain that unless they have extended plans for him, because otherwise people are going to be like, huh? Why didn't he?
Interesting. Yeah. Cause Cody's got to have his moment. Like he's got to confetti the whole deal. Right. So it's not going to happen, but interesting way to explain it. Cause you're right. People are going to expect it.
We've got Wayne says, I believe we're going to get a cash in at some point after Seth versus Drew. Remember, Drew and Priest were getting in each other's way not long ago. So, I mean, that's another thing. If Drew wins and they haven't come to terms on a deal,
right?
Damian Priest could cash in pretty short order.
It's possible. Especially if they lose the tag belts first, right?
Yeah. Bep Jr. says, nice to see Cora Jade doing meet and greets at Mania 40. It is. It's great to see that. Braun is both his pops and uncle. Obafemi is a star. FightfulSelect.com's Corey Brennan reported a lot about Obafemi, that there are people in WWE that see him as a future world champion, which is really, really great. Speaking of Corey Brennan's great work that he's doing, our NXT insider, he's KE775 says, thinking Carmelo, as Corey reported, plus Elia, Blair Davenport, Lyra, Gigi called up post-Mania, feels like. I would like to see JC Jane called up as well. I think she has been main roster ready from a character standpoint for a very, very long time. I think that there's going to be a lot more rhyme and reason behind call-ups. Like, let's be real. In the past, they called up Apollo Crews, who is very clearly ready for the main roster, but they didn't have a plan for him. Dana Brooke, she wasn't ready, and they did not have a plan for her. I think there's going to be less of that anymore, Jimmy. And if you're not ready, I don't think you're going to be called up anymore.
Even Carmelo, I mean, he's had a bunch of matches on the main roster. But he had those matches as a baby face when he was turning heel in NXT. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So, and if he felt directionless, it's like they had him there just to present a good match with no story behind it. Yeah. So I agree. I feel like Hunter knows what he's doing. I saw Rhea Ripley on Logan Paul talking about how more characters have direction now. And Drew McIntyre said something similar in another interview. More characters have more direction now. It feels like Hunter definitely has more of a plan. And so I agree with you. I don't think you're going to see people getting called up just for the sake of getting called up. Now, granted, Candice LeRae's call-up sucked. and she was dead in the water from the start. Now all of a sudden they're doing something with her.
I mean, like the Von Wagner stuff and the Odyssey Jones stuff, they never did anything with any of them. And
Right, but that was still this regime, so you can still kind of put it on him, I guess.
I got a story coming out about that next week as well, about how people are feeling. This will be the really truly the first Vinceless Mania. Motor City Machine Guns update, AEW Double or Nothing, and MGM is better. Yeah, this is one that I had mentioned on the Q&A show recently. Double or Nothing, I did the MGM again. I believe there was a scheduling conflict with T-Mobile. But interesting stat, Jimmy. This will be the third different venue to host Double or Nothing twice, because they did Daily Pace twice, T-Mobile twice, and the first Double or Nothing was at MGM as well. I will say the WrestleMania kickoff trip changed my mind on Vegas, because after seeing how convenient Vegas is and how centrally located everything is compared to LA and Dallas and all these places I've been to for big events, London, I'm like, damn, Las Vegas is a shitty flight, but everything's there. So I've grown to like it a little bit.
So were they planning to book T-Mobile first? And then they
that I don't know.
Okay.
That I don't know.
Because I was actually on my list, I was actually going to give AEW props for booking MGM, because I've been so critical of their live event ticket strategy. I've been so critical of, why are you booking these big venues? Like, for example, and I know this was the previous regime. I know it was, but tonight they're in Quebec City for Dynamite.
Yes.
They're in a brand new building in Quebec City that fits 19,000 for concert, Sean. And they've distributed like 4,000 tickets. And it's like, why are you doing that? So when I heard that for Double or Nothing, they're going in the MGM Grand, which is a bit smaller than T-Mobile, I thought, they're figuring it out now. Like, you don't have to run the biggest venue. They're figuring it out. So I'd like to know, are you only running it because you couldn't get T-Mobile and you tried to get T-Mobile first?
I'll find out. I'll find out. FightfulSelect.com will have the story. We still got a bunch of super chats, including Kim Gray. I'm so sorry that we missed the one on Monday. Says the camera shot from behind Cody as Rock came in Monday was excellent. It was so good I saved it on my phone. The production is a million times better. I've often said this on our shows, Jimmy. There have been 0 times since Christmas that I have said, man, this would have been better with Kevin Dunn. But there have been over a dozen times I've said, thank God Kevin Dunn isn't around.
Yeah, there was one shot, like I mentioned earlier, and I can't recall. It might have been Ricochet and JD McDonough maybe was in the ring, or it might have been the tag match, where they started at Gorilla. They went down the aisle to the ring, showed the guys in the ring, then went around the ring, all in one continuous shot. I love stuff like that. Showing Punk and Gorilla a couple of weeks ago when they showed Sammy all the way from the ring, all the way through the back by Miz and Truth, and then Miz and Truth cut right into a promo, all in one shot. It's very interesting. It's very different, and no more shaky, Sean. It's been a big improvement.
Johnny says, do you see Stone Cold getting involved in Cody versus Roman? I feel like he would do something else.
I missed that again. Sorry.
Do we see Stone Cold getting involved in Cody versus Roman? I mean, we'd mentioned months ago they have a loose thing with Stone Cold where every Mania they'll be like, do you want to do something?
He's not going to do that. Why? What does he have to do with Roman Reigns?
Yeah. Am I crazy, says Nelson, or does every storyline at Mania have at least one person involved who was signed to WWE in 2014 except for Rhea, Bianca, Liv? Let me look. WrestleMania 40. Signed in 2014. Do you mean like signed to the company in 2014? I think that's what
they mean. Signed to the company.
Or just signed in 2014? Owens, Jimmy and Jay were in the company. Not LA Knight and AJ.
Roman, of course.
Yeah, of course. Bailey
Rollins
was there. Judge, of course, that tag match will. Maybe. I don't see a clear path on that one. Arabian Night says, surprise Jade, who has an interview going up with Fightful this week, is on SmackDown. Draft is going to be interesting. Raw Women's Division is weak. Besides Rhea and Becky, Rhea's reign has been awful. I would imagine that once they switch networks, they'll probably do a draft or something like that.
I can't agree on Rhea. Really? Rhea is one of the hottest stars, male or female, in all of wrestling. Now, granted, has she had a lot of matches on television as of late? No. Does she have to? No. I think that her run has been phenomenal. I think that her stock has really risen. I think that she's excellent with the media. I mean, she's so charming with the media. And the fact that they have her kind of taken the lead on Judgment Day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even I think Rhea's run has been excellent. I also don't agree when he says that there's no other women in the company. I don't agree. I mean, they got Bianca Belair, they got Bailey,
Yeah.
they got Io Sky, Jade is coming in. They got Tiffany Stratton who's doing some great things.
She's
Nia
white hot
Jax
right now.
Nia Jax has had the best run of her career.
Yeah.
I don't agree.
I'm with you.
I don't agree.
I'm with you. Just Matt says, Sean, apologies if I came off rude, voicing my concerns about the AI image mix up on Twitter Sunday. Wanted to respectfully share my opinion. Well, I appreciate you respectfully sharing it. We're allowed to use WrestleMania images in order to promote WrestleMania related stories. WWE just thankfully allows wrestling websites to use their image and logos and stuff. We pulled one from Google. It was an AI image. I don't support AI images, but I think that a lot of people believe that everybody else is as balls deep into knowing what all that stuff is as well. And we just grabbed an image off there. We deleted it later. Nobody got hurt. WWE should probably, put a little more emphasis on who creates their own logos, in my opinion. But yeah, we weren't costing anybody work in that sense, and we're not looking to utilize AI stuff. After Mania 41 in Minnesota, have you heard any other sites for a future Mania? Hopefully Nashville and or Indy. I would love both of those. Vegas, I wouldn't hate that after my recent trip there. I feel like after the buzz it got in Vegas and around Vegas, they might consider that, but I would love Nashville or Indy. Do you see them adding another women's match to the Mania card? Yes. Something involving Bianca, Tiffany, and then probably the tag titles.
They've already kind of hinted. I mean, it's going to be Bianca, Bailey, and Naomi against Damage Control. I mean, they've pretty much already hinted at it, so that's probably set.
Peter says MJF isn't listed on the AEW roster and they stopped selling his merch. Is this because he isn't signed or because they're still going with the bidding war 2024 angle? I don't think either. I think it's an out of sight, out of mind type of thing. They want you to forget about him a little bit for when he comes back. He had to heal up injuries. He is with AEW. Do you know if WWE have reached out to any free agents for a Raw After Mania surprise? They sense they want to make up for last year's disaster. I would hope they do. Outside of Motor City Machine Guns, I'm not sure who they would reach out to. Any ideas from you, Jimmy?
I think it'd be NXT call-ups.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. Meet Normus says, sup fellas, let's crank. Asuka ready for Asuka, or will we get Jade hidden in a multi-woman match? Meet Sauce Mafia out. I've mentioned this before. I would not mind if they brought back the Battle Royal and she eliminated like everybody. Everybody.
Jade. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I would love that. Rock Hard Joel Wood says, Atlanta needs a redo. We need a Mania apology for having to sit through 27. No way, buddy. No way, buddy. That's a direct flight from Lexington. I could like that. As far as the Jade thing, I don't know if they'll set something up before Mania. Maybe they'll have her involved in some capacity, but putting her out there would be interesting. Just completely live doing something on her own. That would be pretty wild for Mania.
The Battle Royal makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
Like it does. They have a lot of other girls on the roster that aren't going to get their Mania moment. That's the way to do it. And like you said, have her eliminate everybody, have her win. It makes perfect sense to do that.
Pat says, how would one go about replacing Def Rebel? They need to. Just so just lazy. Not good. Already had a trip to Punk Rock Bowling booked, but heard Double or Nothing is the same weekend. My bank account is effed. I wish that AEW would stop running Memorial Day weekend in Las Vegas. It is a very expensive weekend in Las Vegas, and I think they would be better served running the week before or the week after. And their fans would probably appreciate it a lot more as well.
Weren't they at one point looking to consider like a new place aside from Vegas? At one point?
No, but I wouldn't be surprised to see if Forbidden Door isn't where they plan on it being. I think there's going to be some things moving around with Koshe Irby.
Yeah.
Like taking a look at things. Update on Sheamus, Shelton Benjamin update. Haven't heard an update on Sheamus. Shelton had conversations with AEW. Speaking of AEW, they're on Triller. Got a little cheat code for you guys. Buying pay-per-views on NordVPN.com/Fightful is going to enhance your pay-per-view buying process. Now, one subscription to NordVPN has so many different benefits, but if you're a big pay-per-view buyer like myself, UFC, boxing, pro wrestling, all that good stuff, any combination of the three, if they're doing a fight circus or something like that, this subscription will pay for itself after 1 or 2 pay-per-view buys. Change your virtual location, pay for it at the prices that other people are paying for it in the UK, in Australia, etc., etc. And you can get different interfaces. Maybe you don't like Peacock and you want to check out the WWE Network the way that it used to be, the way that it was designed to be, the easy navigation, so on and so forth. Maybe you want to watch AEW without commercials. Maybe there's some other overseas services that you can't subscribe to and you want access to them. NordVPN.com/Fightful gives you that with a great deal and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Even better, 24/7 tech support, so if you have trouble navigating any of it, they can help you out. Fastest VPN on the planet, NordVPN.com/Fightful. More Humper Chats and Super Chats. Love how much love you guys are giving to us. I want to give some love to our friend Throwback. He's having a rough time of late physically, so sending our love. It says with this was seeming to be a second coming of the Attitude Era. Do you see WWE rehashing the old stories from that time? Do you guys think they will be fully out of the PG era before the Netflix deal starts? Thank you for cheering me up. No, because they sent an internal memo to talent in which apparently just served to make the talent curse more, saying we are a PG property. Please don't curse. And I know a lot of people were giving Meltzer shit about that report. It was accurate. They did send a memo to talent asking them to not curse and reminding them that they're a PG property. And then we've seen more of it in the last few weeks since that happened between Cody, Punk, and The Rock than we saw before.
Wouldn't it be fitting for Drew McIntyre? Do you remember when D-Generation X did that thing behind the podium? You know, from 10 o'clock, we're not going to say this. Wouldn't it be fitting for Drew McIntyre's character to remake that? Of all people on the roster, like to do something similar. Drew McIntyre is the character to do it. You know? Sure.
I don't think that he should remake it, but I think doing something similar, yes, for sure. Johnny says he should have clarified Stone Cold getting involved with Cody and Roman if The Rock gets involved. No, we figured that's what you meant. I just don't think that Stone Cold will get involved. I think it would be people like Orton and Rollins and even Drew, like people that have been screwed over by Bloodline in the past.
LA Knight. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. TK says Rock pins Cody night 1. Cody beats Roman night 2. Creates friction between Rock and Roman. Rock versus Cody at SummerSlam. And that's when Roman turns on Rock, setting up their Mania 41 match. I don't hate that idea. I think at this point, The Rock would be the heel. I think the wrestling audience would kind of grow to love Roman a little bit without the championship. And he would be there a little bit more than The Rock would be at that point.
Maybe if they do something where the rest of the bloodline sides with The Rock.
Yeah.
So the rest of the bloodline, Solo and Jimmy, and maybe they add somebody else. All of a sudden, Rock is the tribal chief, and they side with him, and Roman's on the outs. Then he could come back as the babyface, and the crowd would be with him, I think. But I think it depends on where the sidekicks are at. Is going to determine who the people cheer for.
We've got Van Twinblade saying the Warhausen divorce is out on Glory Pro Ascend. If you're coming to St. Louis for Dynasty, go to Glory Pro for a special 2 p.m. bell time show. Well, I've got my own 2 p.m. bell time show that day. I will be in Jeffersonville at Paulcade, and then I will be driving back very quickly as I'll be doing the post show for AEW Dynasty. But Arabian Night says once Mello and Elia are called up, probably in the summer, NXT's men's division will be in trouble going into the CW era. Could you see WWE signing Santana, Fatu, and Macklin? I think that of all those people you mentioned, Macklin makes an incredible amount of sense. One, I like the guy personally. Two, I don't think there is a single wrestler in the world that probably knows the NXT system better than him. He was there for 6 years. He made it to the main roster. Then when he got released, he made himself a main eventer elsewhere. I think he would immediately be a great talent on NXT, but I like all three of those mentioned. I like the idea of Santana being involved too. Like add a little bit of star power there to the NXT roster. I think that'd be good.
And don't forget, like NXT, they still got Trick, they still got Femi, they still got Braun Breaker. Although Braun Breaker, I guess, has been kind of called up on a
He is called up. Yeah, he's called up.
But he's still working in NXT. So like they still got some solid guys in NXT. It's not like the cupboard's completely bare, but more veterans are always welcome, right? It's good for the young talent to work with the veterans.
Does The Rock take the pin in the tag match? I don't think so. I think that erodes his final boss aura. Sticking to my gun, says Broadway Joe. Drew and Becky debut at Wembley. A week later, Mox pins Okada to end All Out, and Seth recreates Mox's debut through the crowd. I mean, listen, there have been a lot of times I've said this is going to send AEW into the next level. Listen, if they had their roster plus those two, that would be insane. I don't think it's happening. I think Becky and Seth stay in WWE.
And this is my opinion, and I want to talk about some AEW rating stuff in a minute. They didn't get Edge; they got Adam Copeland, right? Yeah. They're not going to get Seth Rollins. They're not going to get Becky Lynch. It makes
to be fair. They got the rated R superstar Adam Copeland. It's as close as you can get.
Fair, I guess, but like, okay, I guess, but
and I mean,
I figured you see Adam Copeland on the banner. I mean,
they don't got to get Becky Lynch. They can just get Becky. She owns her name is Becky.
Right. They could. Do you think that and I'm a fan of Adam Copeland. I'm not trying to shit on him. Do you think that maybe his star doesn't have as much shine to it before he went to AEW because of how his run ended in WWE? So maybe it wasn't what people thought it was going to be.
I think that his star was fading a little bit in WWE already.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yes.
He had done, he'd done a bunch of matches there. Like he had done about as I'm looking, he came back at Royal Rumble 2020. He'd done about 25 matches there. He was facing like Grayson Waller on SmackDown.
Right.
So, I mean,
put over Austin Theory.
Yeah. The Finn Balor stuff wasn't, too hot. That he put over Austin Theory, like you mentioned. So I think he was fading a little bit, but he's a little older. Rumteen says, with Triple H being a vital part of the Attitude Era, do you think he views the business from a different lens than Vince? I think almost everybody does, Jimmy.
Absolutely.
Vince is old and dumb now.
So with all due respect to Vince McMahon, when it comes to what he's done for pro wrestling, do you remember Bret Hart and Wrestling with Shadows? And this is him talking from the perspective of a talent. Yeah. Bret Hart and Wrestling with Shadows says they use you as long as they can use you, and then they take you behind the barn and they shoot you, right?
Yeah.
And Vince in his position treated talent like that. He did. Like, aside from the people that he was really close to, he kind of did. They were interchangeable. Hunter was a talent. Hunter understands what the guys deal with because he was there. I think it makes a massive difference when you were a talent and now you're the guy booking the talent. Big difference.
Van Twinblade says, Indeed on Fightful Overbooked has your BFF Shaza on in a few hours. Yeah, she's a good friend of mine now. Now. Matthew Hooks of Hooked in Voiceovers, who sponsored the Fightful Awards, says Drew in AEW with grizzled young vets at Wembley versus BCC would hump. I mean, yeah, of course it would. It would hump, but I don't think it's going to happen. Caden says The Rock better than the Homelander cosplayer has saved the business. Oh, but get out of here, buddy.
Is that The Rock's mom?
Yeah, it is.
Might as well be.
Caden looks like The Rock's mom.
And based on everything, they had hashtag Terramana in there. Come on.
Richie says, hey, SRS, first time I've had the chance to tune in live since meeting you at Revolution. It was great to meet you, by the way. Of the major AEW talent that are out, who do you think comes back first? No timetable on Omega. I haven't heard anything about Hayter. I've at least heard some movement on MJF. So I'm going to say him. Do I think Tama Tonga debuts the week after Mania when you see Julia arriving in WWE? Maybe later this year for Julia. Maybe. I don't know. Tama Tonga, I think him debuting after Mania would be a good idea.
You think NXT for Tama? Or you think main roster?
If the OC are still in NXT, then yes. Will Chisholm says, I know the Raw after Mania last year was so bad. How was it backstage? How was talent and Triple H's reactions? It may be a dumb question. It's not a dumb question at all. A lot of people were very annoyed because they thought they were completely done with Vince. Mm-hmm. If you remember, Jimmy, when I reported Vince's hand back in creative, I got harassed by a lot of people that said I was fear-mongering and all this bullshit. Then Mania comes around. He's changing the finishes of matches. Then Raw after Mania happens and he screws up the whole show. I got some apologies within WWE on that day, and there were some really dejected people, and they were horrified at what the next week would bring. It sucked. Got a few more. Jana says, music is an issue in WWE, and they want more mainstream. Why don't they reach out to well-known music artists for custom entrance music? They have the money. Would benefit both parties with exposure. Listen, I can't pretend to understand how that works, but I mean, listen, if I were a band, I would probably look at Alter Bridge, and I'm sure they've gotten paid quite a bit over the years, but Alter Bridge has an incredible fan base, and a lot of people only know them not because they had a wonderful singer with the rest of the band of Creed behind them, but because of pro wrestling. So I think they should lean on that more.
You remember during the Attitude Era, they released an album, WWE album, and every song was by a legitimate band doing entrance music. And then they ended up using every one of those songs as the wrestler's entrance music. I don't get why they don't do it now. And I think back to, do you remember when Seth Rollins at the Rumble was in the, he was in the box seats and he was watching the Rumble. And when somebody would come out and their music would hit, Rollins was sitting there frozen for a couple seconds because he didn't know who they were either.
Yeah.
A lot of these people.
That's why they've had to do the Titantrons different, where they put the name up there so people recognize some of them.
Yes, exactly. It's a big difference from where it was. 100%.
Nelson says people who were in WWE in 2014 or on TV in 2014 and will likely have a match at Mania. Then he lists them all: Ray, Naomi, Kofi, Xavier, Seth Heyman, Drew, Punk, Sammy KO, Becky, Truth, Randy, Miz, Cody, Bailey. Yeah, the shelf life of a wrestler is much longer now. What's going on with Britt? I missed the DMD. Don't know where she is on a health thing, but I know she's willing to work TV. Call me crazy. I do not know when Hook and Darby's contracts are up. I'd be shocked if Hook didn't get interest from WWE. Darby wants to be in AEW. Throwback says, this is just to show love. Thank you from my heart for cheering me up when I'm hooked up to machines. Fightful helped me 5 years ago, and you're doing it now. Jimmy, Sean, the Dong Lord Sapp. Haven't used that one in a while. It felt a little gross to do that one after the last few years. So I leaned out of that one, but thanks for that stroll down memory lane. We love you, Throwback. Couple more. Christian says, anyway, you can find out what the stage setup will look like for Mania. What would you like for it to be like? It's Mania, so they're going to have a grand set.
It's Philly. They're going to have a big Liberty Bell, guaranteed.
Yeah, it'll probably have a big Liberty Bell.
Yeah.
Some homage to Rocky in some capacity.
I know they wanted Stallone. Maybe he'll do the narration or something?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think he will. And I think they will have a big flat stage and a gargantuan screen or something like that. I mean, quite honestly, very rare that I get to find out until the week of. Do you see the fam leaving victorious at Stand and Deliver? Do you see Dragunov going up after Mania? I think Dragunov's going to stay there, just personally. I'm sure eventually he'll go up to the main roster, but I do think the fam will win. Says, am I to hopefully see Cole on the 4/3/24 show? I'll be there and hope he is. Do you mean Adam Cole?
You must.
I'm sure he'll be at the show. And Gisberto, who does our thumbnails, says, wish AEW wasn't running Rogers Arena in Vancouver for Collision. UBC has a great venue. They could have sold out. Could the new COO change things? So I know the Canadian dates were ones that they looked at and they're like, well, shit, they're already advertised. We might as well run them. That's it. I think in the future, you're going to see that. And Tony had a good reasoning for a lot of that stuff is like, well, the email blast lists for those venues,
the amenities,
the amenities.
Yeah.
And they can afford them. They're not usually booked out on Wednesdays anyway, so they can get them at a good rate. But Mr. Acosta asked for your thoughts on Mercedes before we wrap up this show shortly.
Well, that was on my list, so I guess we'll talk about that, even though it's 4:00. So I wanted to talk about this a couple weeks ago. We didn't do the podcast, so I didn't. I wanted to talk about her debut and the rating that came out. There's no question it was a disappointing rating, but I felt like people had unrealistic expectations because you and I talked about this, Sean. The day of Wednesday, the day of her debut, there were some renowned wrestling writers who I will not name posting unrealistic predictions
Yeah.
in terms of what viewership was going to be. Some predicted 950,000 viewers. They were predicting a key demo rating of like a 0.35. And you and I talked about it, and I saw that and I thought to myself, what the hell are they basing it on? For a couple of reasons. One reason is AEW didn't advertise her. Now, I mentioned that on Twitter, and a lot of people tried to shit on me, Sean, and they said, oh, what do you mean? Everybody knew. Everybody knew. They spelled Boston with $2 signs. Everybody knew. Here's what people don't understand. People who follow wrestling news on social media, they knew. AEW's core fan base, which is very much the same as the people that follow wrestling news on social media, they knew. Did every American television viewer that watches TNT know? They did not. And I'll tell you how I know this. I have a lot of friends who are casual wrestling fans. They don't check anything out unless it goes viral. You know what I mean? They don't follow wrestling news religiously. They might channel flip and stop for a minute. A lot of them didn't know what AEW was until I told them about it. A lot of them had no idea that WWE superstar Sasha Banks had been wrestling in Japan for a couple of years. They didn't know. And so to suggest that they didn't need to advertise her because everybody knew is not accurate. And I think they should have advertised her. I have a second point, but I'll ask you your thoughts on the first one first. Do you think that they didn't need to advertise her because quote unquote, everybody knew?
I think they should have advertised her. I think they should have advertised her. I think that was important. Did you hear the story about her going crazy backstage though?
No.
Yeah. Somebody said, Mercedes nuts.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to mention, when I said they should have advertised her, people, the anti-AEW people, they tried to use Punk's debut in 21. And they tried to use that and say, well, they didn't advertise Punk in August of 21, and they did whatever, 1 people on Rampage. It's not the same. Mercedes Moné, and I'm going to put her name in quotes. That name in March of 2024 is nowhere near as big as CM Punk in August of 21. He was coming off a 7-year layoff. They didn't think he was ever going to wrestle again. And at the same time, people that shit on Mercedes because they didn't sell out Boston, Mercedes Moné in Boston is nowhere near the same level in terms of being synonymous as CM Punk in Chicago. It's not the same thing. And so I'm not going to defend the rating because it was disappointing. It feels right now like no matter what AEW does, they can't get over that 800,000 viewer hump. But even though the number was disappointing, I think it was very unfair and unrealistic to expect that not advertising Mercedes, she was suddenly going to draw 1 million viewers. It was never going to happen.
I agree.
So, and that's my thoughts on that.
I agree. We got KE775 saying, Sean, check out Becky on Ariel Helwani. She said she's got 2 months left on her deal. Nobody on WWE have approached her yet, which I find surprising. I don't find it surprising because Fightful Select has reported that repeatedly on FightfulSelect.com. That's where we're headed right now for the list goes on. But yeah, listen, there's a lot of people that are in disbelief. They swear that we're making stuff up about this contract stuff. I'm telling you guys, it's wild. It's wild, the approach that is happening right now. I that's why I posted that story, I think, on Christmas. It's going to be the most insane contract free agent year ever. New Lac City says, I'm happy you guys were talking about ratings. Both of you even stated just because WWE is hot, they aren't getting 2 million Raw viewers. Same applied to AEW. Running to dunk on fast nationals need to get out of prehistoric times. I'll give you a good example, guys. Just 5 years ago. Do you remember when Triple H cut that promo that really set wrong with a lot of fans where he made fun of them being dissatisfied at the show? And he's like, well, me and my friend Mark will stop watching.
Yes.
Then their viewership dropped like in half over the next 5 years. And then what happened, Jimmy? They got the highest rights fees that they had ever gotten by far. Wasn't even close.
Mm-hmm.
And what's happened since then? The viewership has either plateaued on one end or gone down. And what's happening? They're getting more money than they got before.
Mm-hmm.
You can say it's inflation. You can say whatever it is, but things are measured much differently. And not only that, they're monetizing things a lot better.
There's no
Guys-
question that the cable business is eroding and dying, and the companies, they know it. They're well aware of it. That's why they're pumping billions into streaming, because they know that's where it's going to go. But they haven't figured out how to monetize streaming, which is the problem. And so they're still kind of living on advertisers, and they're living on the cable fees that they get from the cable distributors. But it is it's funny because I look at it two ways. So on the one hand, cable cutting is real. And raw drawing, whatever they were averaging back in the Attitude Era days, 5, 6, 7 million. They're never going to get that now. At the same time, we did see an increase in SmackDown viewership when the Bloodline got hot. And so even though cable cutting has been going on, WWE has proven that if you have a hot product, you can actually see an increase in your numbers. But are you going to go back to 10 million or 7 million? You're not. You're not. People are consuming content differently. Now, I see a lot of people that will defend AEW's numbers by saying cable cutters, cable cutters, cable cutters. To a degree, that's true.
Sure.
But it's not entirely true, right? I mean, Collision and Rampage have really struggled. Dynamite has struggled to a lesser degree, but Dynamite's still top 3 on Wednesdays. Like, there's still value in Dynamite. I don't know about Collision and Rampage, but there's still value in Dynamite. And so long as you're still ranked in the top 3, they're a value to Warner Brothers. So that's how it is.
Guys, please leave a thumbs up on this video. We would greatly appreciate it. We are heading on over to FightfulSelect.com for the list goes on. A reminder, I will be in Indianapolis at Black Label Pro wrestling in their Rumble this weekend. It is to benefit Hosea's House, which helps women and children in crisis. Next month, I will be at, Paulcade doing the Battle Royal to benefit the Humane Society of Washington County. Until next time, guys, we're out.